So you can see the spotting. This is one end of the table here. 46 is a depth off the back face, so the bigger the number, the further we are away from that face, which the spotting, the bluing, is matching up with measurements, because 47 there, that's measuring deeper, which means we've got a hole there and we don't have any spotting. And then as you come down to this end of the table, this is actually the highest at 45. The far end is 46, and that's just a number that's, you know, I think it was 945 thou to the pin. So the spotting is matching with the measurements. So at this point, I'm going to scrape. Yeah, I'm going to scrape this end here, this 45 end here, to try and get down around 46. And then both ends at the same time down to bring the center in. I know I've talked about it before, but I just really appreciate the fact that Harold showed me this jeweler's rouge trick here. You can see the spotting now as the bluing gets lighter and lighter on the straight edge. You get less and less of it, and then when you put that red background in there, really pops. And what it is, it's just jeweler's rouge, and you can just grate it almost like Parmesan cheese on your favorite pasta, and then with a little bit of alcohol make up a slurry, and then a good quality rag, and you wipe it on. You just got to make sure you don't have any chunks or anything in there, so you just wipe it and you just get it where it's just a light sheen of pink, and then that blue really pops. So with the fixed dovetail of the table spotting really well, and my measurements with dowel pins from this surface here looking good, I decided I would put the saddle up on the table, which is again all upside down, and I was checking this motion here, and what I was checking for was how parallel this saddle runs to the table. And the good news is end to end is 0, 0, but in the middle I'm about 1.5 thou pushing towards 2. I can't remember whether I'm plus or minus at this point. I've been off and on this job, and anyway, slowly making my way back to it. So what I want to do is, I have not really checked the fixed way of the saddle at this point, so I'm going to take it, strip it all down again, and look at the bottom, or the fixed way of the saddle, and see how straight and how that blues up with a straight edge. See if we got something going on there. Right in at the bottom of the dovetail, there was a little bit of a step where the fixed way was not wearing, so there wasn't 100% contact to the table. So I just rough scraped that and get rid of that step all the way across, and then I'm just using my worn out file here and just making sure that I'm knocking anything high off of this thing before I put the blue to it. So I'm working on the fixed dovetail side of the saddle, and the straight edge just doesn't feel right sitting on there, and it's hard to really see some of the blue here on this outside edge. You can see it, I can see it down in here in the bottom, pretty much both ends, a little light in the middle. And then when I look at the spotting or the transfer to the master, there's a line here and there's another line down at the other end. So it looks like the dovetail is dished this way a little bit, and rather than scraping both edges, I'm going to just take this. It might actually be a step, although from the difference in the when it's in the machine, the difference in the size and the radius is there may actually be a little bit of a step there, so I'm going to work that just with the hand scraper and see if we can change the bluing a bit. So with just a little bit of work, I've been able to get a better pattern here, but I don't want to do anything further with this. As you can see, it's looking much better, like there's a pattern across the whole surface. But the thing that I want to do now is get this saddle back on the table, check the tram when it's moving, see how it looks, and then I also want to check the contact angle between the table and the saddle to make sure that I haven't got anything out of alignment as far as an angle goes for the two mating surfaces. So that'll be the next step. I don't want to scrape this in if it's on the wrong angle. So as I suspected, there is an issue with the angle of the dovetail on the saddle versus the table. So I've got the saddle on the table, everything's upside down, and I've got a fairly heavy coating of bluing on the saddle, and when I spot the saddle against the table dovetail, I'm just barely picking up down at the bottom inside the dovetail there. So at this point, the best and actually the easiest is to scrape the saddle now to match the table. So I'm going to work away on that a little bit and try and get that contact better. So with the saddle, I've been using the back side of the table here, which was the datum, because the back side of the table needs to run perpendicular to the knee. So with this here straight, parallel to the back of the table, which becomes a datum for me, the saddle, bluing came in good. I've got a good contact on this fixed dovetail side. So the next thing now is to make sure that the two dovetails of the table are parallel. And once that's complete, then we got to fit a gib. So just measuring across a couple of dowels, one on either side. Checking along here, there's about 2 thou. I got to take 2 thou off down at this end of the gib side of the dovetail. So that'll be the next step, and I'm just going to rough step scrape it, and then same process, start to straighten it out and get it flat, and then come back and measure and check for parallelism. Just thought I'd show how this bracket, I had built this for lifting the table and being allowed to rotate it to spot the top surface of the table, but since that point I've been using it for a variety of things, and this is an example where this dovetail needs to be at a certain, or it doesn't need to be, but it's ideal if you can get it at an angle that helps you in the scraping process. And so what I do is I use this as a stop, and I've got just a chunk of tubing here that stops this from moving. It's on wood, and when I rotate it, locks in. There's a piece of wood in the back that stops the back end from kicking out, and everything's with C-clamps here. And what it does is it puts this dovetail at a good angle for scraping and spotting and ultimately being able to see it. So just and then I can straighten it up, and if I need to put some bluing in there or whatever, but works out good. So this is the gibbed side of the dovetail for the table, and pretty happy right now with the results. A little bit more just to break it up, but otherwise looking really good right now. So at this point now, with the with the two tableways parallel, and the saddle and the table playing quite nicely together, we the next step is going to be to get the gib fitted, and although it doesn't matter the angle between the saddle and the table, I do want to check it and touch up the table, or sorry, the saddle just a bit, so that as I fit the gib, they're in better alignment, so it just makes scraping the gib easier. So that'll be the next step. I got some blue in here, and I'm just going to push the saddle in up against the tableway, and see what we get, see what kind of contact we got, and adjust it. So I've got the oil passage in the this is the sliding side of the gib now, so I've got that passage put in there. That should give me lots of oil, and so this is the first spotting coming out of the saddle and the table, and there's a little dark line across here. I think that's just some excess bluing that it picked up when I was putting the gib in, so I'm going to ignore that right now, but not bad, decent. Looks like it's centered. There's no problems with the angle or anything at this point, so I'm going to do a little bit of scraping here and get a few cycles in and see how it looks. So with the with the gib just barely being able to fit to for the adjustment screw to pilot in the bore there, it's just a bit too tight. I'm happy with the finish on either side, the moving and the non-moving side, so that's good. The saddle, this is upside down on my workbench here, but the saddle here is moving really nicely. And with the gib in and adjusted, I did check end to end, and it's 0, end to end, which is off the back side of the saddle to the back side of the table, which I was using as a reference to get everything square and parallel off of that back surface on both of those parts. So I think at this point here I'm happy with how things have gone together. I put the new bearing keepers in, got everything set up pretty much ready to go. All I got to do now is take the gib down just a little thinner, and I think what I'm going to do is I'll work off the non-moving side, which is less critical for finish, surface finish, flatness and points, whatnot. And I can work flat on that side and get the gib thinner as I need to get it further into the dovetail at this point.